Today we're going to be factoring quadratic trinomials in the form of ax squared plus bx plus c, where a is the leading coefficient, b is the middle term, and c is the constant. What we're going to be doing is splitting the middle term to come up with ax squared plus b sub 1x plus b sub 2x plus c. And again, this is called split the middle term. So I'll go ahead and write that right here. Split the middle term. And part of our methodology is going to be using something called the magic X. Now, there's nothing really magical about it. It's just a process. So what we do is we make a large X here. So we can put some numbers inside there. And at the top of our X, we're going to find a product. Now the product is the result of multiplying two numbers. We're actually going to multiply A times C to do that. So I'll go ahead and put those in parentheses, which would imply multiplication. And at the bottom, we're going to be finding a sum. And the sum has to add up to our middle term, which is B. Now, on the sides, we're going to end up with two numbers that multiply to get A times C, and those same two numbers end up with B. Let me fix that real quick. Okay, so they're going to be B sub 1 and B sub 2. We don't know what those numbers are yet. But again, those two numbers have to add up to be B and multiplied to be A times C. All right, let's go ahead and get a specific problem that we're going to do. And that problem is going to be 12x squared plus 8x and then plus c. You can have a negative constant, so I'm going to put a minus sign here, so minus 15. Okay, and that's our quadratic trinomial that we're going to be factoring. So we'll go ahead and make our magic X off to the right here. And in this case, I have a 12 for the leading coefficient and a negative 15 for the constant. So I'm going to multiply those. I'll put the negative 15 in here. And my middle term is 8. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and write this one more time because I actually have to multiply 12 times negative 15. And that's actually going to be negative 180. So I'll go ahead and write that here. That's negative 180. And I still have my 8 for B. Now I need two numbers when multiply equal negative 180, and those same two numbers when added to be are 8. So I'm thinking of 10 and 18. Doesn't really matter which one I put first, but what does matter is the fact that I need a negative 180. So one of these has to be negative. So I want a positive 8 when I add them together, so I have to make the 10 the negative. And I'm going to go ahead and put an X here next to the 18 and next to the negative 10x. Now I'm going to rewrite my original quadratic trinomial. Tri means 3. I'm going to rewrite it into 4 terms. So now I'm going to have 12x squared plus, okay, this is where splitting the middle term comes in. I have my 18x here, so I'm going to write 18x. And then minus 10x, so it's actually a negative 10x here, which is the same thing as minus 10x. And then, of course, minus 15. So what I've done is I've split the middle term. Actually, I'll rewrite that up here. Split the middle term is what I'm actually doing. And you can see that the 8 has become an 18 and a negative 10. So it's still the same value. 18x minus 10x is 8x. Okay, next we're going to do something called factor by grouping. So I'll write that right here. We're going to be doing something called factor by grouping. Okay, that's the methodology after we get to this point. So when we factor by grouping, I'm going to go ahead and write this again as 12x squared, just so I have a little bit more room here. 12x squared plus 18x, and then minus 10x, and then minus 15. Okay, so I sometimes call this the Harry Potter method because this symbol right here kind of reminds us of the Harry Potter symbol. And when we factor by grouping, we actually want to factor out the GCF of the first two terms. So I'll write that over here. So we're going to factor out the GCF, greatest common factor, of the first two terms. In this case, I'm working with 12x squared plus 18x. So I can actually factor out a 6x, because 6 goes into 12, and 6 goes into 18, and then they both have an x. So I'll factor out 6x. And what I'm left with on the inside is now, I'm left with 2x, because 2 times 6 is 12, and then plus 3. Plus 3. I'll just go ahead and make that in red. Okay. Now the beauty of this system is that I have a 2x plus 3 as my binomial here. I need another 2x plus 3 over here, so I'll go ahead and leave a little bit of room so I can put 2x plus 3 in there. 2x and then plus 3. And now technically I'm factoring out the GCF from the next two terms, or I can think of it as multiplying 2 times what to get negative 10? Well, it turns out to be negative 5. Okay, so I'll just put a negative there. It's a negative 5. Okay. All right, so that's what I have so far. So what we're actually doing now is we're going to be factoring out the GCF out of this whole quantity here. But to make it a little bit more understandable, I'm going to do this. I'm going to rewrite this as 6x. I'm just basically going to rewrite it again. Okay, so you can see what I'm doing here. All right, so we have a 2 and the 3. We got, all right, 2x plus 3 here. And then we have another 2x plus 3 over here. Just using different colors, just trying to make it a little more presentable here. And then we have our negative 5. So what I'm going to do to kind of make you understand what's happening is that I'm going to pretend that this entire quantity of 2x plus 3 is really just a y. Okay, we're just going to pretend it's a y. So if I rewrite it one more time, I have 6xy minus 5y minus 5y. And now if we see it in this fashion and we say, okay, factor out the GCF out of these two, you would say, oh, that's easy. I'm just going to factor out the y. So if we factor out the y, we end up with 6x, and then minus 5. Minus 5. So really, when I do this now, I'm really factoring out the 2x plus 3. So when I get to that point, okay, here's what's really happening. I'm factoring out the 2x plus 3. okay, instead of the y, because it's really a 2x plus 3. So we have 2x plus 3. Okay, and then what are we left with? Well, we factored out the 2x plus 3. We're left with the 6x minus 5. 6x minus 5. 6x minus 5. And let me make this plus sign a little bit better. So that is the original quadratic trinomial that we started with way back here. Okay, right up here. 12x squared plus 8x minus 15. It's factored to 2x plus 3 times the quantity 6x minus 5. Now, the 2x plus 3 and the 6x minus 5, they're actually called linear factors. There's two of them, and they're binomials. Okay, so next, I want you to try one. And you factored this one. And it is 3x squared plus 10x minus 8. So use the techniques that I taught you and go ahead and factor that.